3 plywood drones slip into Black Sea airspace at 2:23. On radar, they're smaller than a seagull. But the real trick? A $10,000 decoy swarm that makes Russia's multi-million-dollar defenses chase ghosts. In the next minutes, you'll see how fake radio chatter, hot engines, and tight formation flight mimic high-end naval drones well enough to pull 6 Ka-27PL helicopters off the true vector. Stay to learn the exact signals, heat, and timing that made the deception work, and the blind corridor in Podlet K1 coverage that let the real killers through. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. Costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Why did a group of cheap jet skis force multi-million-dollar air defenses to stare the wrong way for 30 critical minutes? Because the only thing more expensive than a missile is a bad assumption. When your sensors swear they see a swarm, you move. And when you move the wrong way, you bleed time. The feint started as dawn smeared a gray line over the water. Modified jet skis and small commercial boats pushed in from the southeast, throttled to match the attack speed of known naval drones and trimmed to ride low. They tracked a straight but living line toward Novorossiysk, not fast enough to feel robotic, not slow enough to read as fishermen. On scope and scope alone, they looked like Mirage V5 profiles.
In the last 12 months, Russia has killed tens of thousands of Ukrainian men, women, and children.
Uprooted more than 13 million people from their homes, bombed more than 700 hospitals.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said before he'll consider peace talks, Russia must meet one condition.
Stop shelling us, stop killing civilians.
It wants to continue to brutalize the Ukrainian people, wants to continue to shell their cities and towns.
And yet, the spirit of the Ukrainians remains unbroken. If anything, it's stronger than ever.
A cheap chorus singing a familiar song, but the shoreline was stacked with watchers. Podlet K1 radars raked the surface with wide area sweeps. Patrol boats ran surface search modes in overlapping arcs. Ka-27PL helicopters sat hot, waiting to chase. That net punishes sloppy lies. Too cold, too clean, too perfect. Burned in a minute. So the decoys had to carry 3 truths at once. One for each kind of eye that might spot them, each with a different habit of doubt. First, radio. Each platform carried low-power emitters that pulsed in a call-and-response rhythm. Short bursts, then listening gaps. The bands lined up where operators expected to see control links and telemetry. The duty cycles wandered just enough to feel human in the loop. Small drift, slight jitter, no metronome. On a screen, that kind of chatter feels like a crew juggling navigation, throttle, and signal strength, not a single perfect machine humming on a bench. Then heat. A jet ski throws a hot core and trails a cooler smear on the water. The builders leaned into that simple fact. Engine compartments vented just enough. Resistor packs sat close to vents to raise the plume temperature by a notch.
All right, in other news, Russia has conducted fresh strikes on Ukraine's Zaporizhia region. Ukraine says Russian forces carried out 567 attacks over the last 24 hours.
At least 7 people were injured in a missile strike, while 2 others were hospitalized, and 23 private homes, 12 apartment buildings, and a post office suffered damage. Ukraine and Russia are exchanging fire on multiple fronts. Bridges are being destroyed, cities are burning, and oil depots are under attack.
From a helicopter's flare, you need a heartbeat in the bloom. Hot center, cooler wake, flicker at the edges as the hull meets chop. A dead, uniform thermal shape at sea level screams, fake. A layered plume says, pilot, engine, and wake. And that keeps a crew leaning forward. Finally, geometry. Real humans drive like they're fighting the sea, because they are. The decoy formation held steady intervals that breathed a little. One lead, one lag. Tiny corrections at the nose. A light wobble in trail when crosswell hit. Speed discipline that hugs a lane but never forgets the water. Computers draw perfect parades. Attack teams draw lines that look alive. That is the tell operators trust under stress. Meanwhile, overhead collectors and coastal spotters didn't see boats. They saw volume. Multiple returns in the right sector at the right hour, spaced like known Ukrainian drone pushes. When a handful of points fits a known pattern, the brain fills in the swarm. That's not magic. It's how busy crews cut noise. And the decoys gave them all the right hooks to hang that story. So the helicopters launched. West, fast. Patrol boats rolled their arcs toward the ghost column. Headsets snapped to the fake attack axis. Every minute of flight pulled eyes and sensors off the real problem by another nautical mile. You don't win these fights by being tough. You win by being right about what to ignore. Here's the quiet payoff. The real strike group slid the opposite way. Under the lane everyone swore was the fight. With the helos outbound and patrols reframing their search boxes, the water opened. The gate wasn't big, and it wasn't static. It crawled with the scan timing of the shore radar and the fringe of sea clutter where returns get messy. That fringe became shelter, not with armor, but with doubt.
Day after day of Russia's atrocities, it's easy to become numb to the horror, to lose our ability to feel shock and outrage. 2,600 schools and abducted at least 6,000 Ukrainian children.
That's why the U.S., together with the G7, announced new sanctions targeting 83 Russian entities, including banks and wealth management groups and military supply chains. But the U.S. and allies say they won't lose sight of the need to help Ukraine, and the White House announced it's releasing $10 billion in additional aid.
Think of it like a streetlight at dusk. Step in and you're obvious. Hug the edge and the light lies about your shape. The decoys turned the light up where it didn't matter. The strike team lived on the edge where the beam thins and the operator's hand hesitates over the call. The money math is crude and brutal. A handful of sub-$10,000 hulls created a threat picture that outbid a fleet's attention. The net followed the money, not the truth. And with the eyes pulled off axis, the next move hinged on a tiny timing fault in the radar sweep that kept opening and closing a moving corridor over the water, just wide enough for killers made of plywood and battery to pass steel unseen. Cheap decoys beat rich shields. That's the lesson. Break sensor trust and a fleet loses the plot and the clock all at once. You saw how low-cost hulls, tuned radio noise, and honest heat signatures bent a defense grid built to stop real threats. That is cost imposition in motion. Spend little, force big moves, open lanes for the strike. What would you do with $100,000? 1 missile or 10 ghosts that steal attention? Comment your choice below and subscribe to track how deception rewrites naval warfare. Next, we dissect the blind corridor in Podlet K1 coverage and the atmospheric lens that let a plywood killer touch steel.